Welcome to Psyched by MG. This is Mary Grace Randazzo-Ratliff, or MG for short. I've been a psychotherapist in private practice for 32 years now. Guess what, everyone? We all have issues. So it's time to lighten up and move forward. Let's stop letting our crap control us and take control of our crap.
Hey, that's a catchy tune.
Hi, everybody.
What's going on, people?
Oh, my gosh. Well, we, of course, David Wright, my co-host, is here with our incredible guest, Denise Brennan Nelson, author of 26 children's books so far. And Denise, you're gonna just jump in right away because Denise, just to give everybody a little background, Denise used to be on the Nooner Show podcast. And she was one of the original members, and she was the one that gave me the podcast bug. And so she knows how all this works. And so we're going to have you jump in whenever the hell you want.
Yeah, try and stop me, right?
Right.
It's a free-for-all.
Yeah. And this week, okay, Dave.
Okay.
I don't know.
I already know because I saw your Facebook post.
You saw it?
Your appliance repair?
Denise, I think I lost my shit. I think I lost my freaking mind.
I ended up call you, Mary Grace. I really was. I was going to call you and say, do you just want to just have a drink or something? I mean, something.
I would have needed it. I think I channeled all of my anger and frustration into this poor Sears service repair guy. Our fridge broke, so we've been working out of a stupid cooler in a college dorm fridge.
It's good for you.
During a pandemic when you can't go to a damn restaurant. And so he was delayed a week, and then he was coming Wednesday, and it was this guy, and he comes into my home, no mask. He's got him dangling from his pocket. No, won't put his booties on, won't wear his gloves, nothing. And he's got a little bit of an attitude. And he's like, oh, I don't know if I can fix this. And your refrigerator is a part of a class action lawsuit, and the compressor is a big problem, blah, blah, blah. Well, it was a hard work week. I mean, people are really struggling right now. And so I got an attitude and I said, are you fucking telling me you cannot fix my freaking refrigerator? And the look on his face, he just kind of looked at me, and I said, we aren't playing games. I want to know right now, are you trying to tell me you can't fix my freaking refrigerator? He said, well, I got to look at it. And I said, well, then don't say anything until you're sure what you could do. Well, it's your compressor, and I don't think I have the part. And, we're having a problem with all these refrigerators. And I said, well, if you guys are having a problem with my refrigerator, why didn't they get the parts before you got here? He's like, well, they don't do it, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm boiling. So then he says, we're going to get you the part. It'll only take 4 or 5 days, but I won't be able to put it in until June 12th. Oh,
sorry, I'm not laughing at you, Mary Grace, but it's just
Dave, you know me.
I know you're already at your wit's end. And
I was done. I said, am I fucking hearing you correctly? I said, this is no go. Who do I call? And he said, oh, well, there's no one really you can talk to. I said, oh, there's somebody I can talk to. Don't you worry about that. So I get on. I call the service repair company. Denise, I kid you not, 6 hours dealing with holds. They dropped my call. I finally got through. They said, you need to talk to a manager. And then I'm beeping away. Then the call drops again. I call again, 6 hours. Now I'm on, what is it called? DEFCON 9 or whatever. I am like gone. So I get on social media, and David read my tweet, and I am like, I don't know who's running this company, but blah, blah, blah. And this is what happened. And I'm done. I am absolutely freaking done. And then I find out who the CEO of this company is. And I get on Twitter. You make the big bucks. And if you're going to make the big bucks, you need to answer to me and blah, 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 blah. I'm losing it. I'm in their Facebook pages.
It was the best written vitriol I've seen in a long time.
I was gone. And then I'm not done. I'm so wound up that I get a hold of the CEO for the LG refrigerators. And now I'm messaging him. I'm just crazy. So I get this message on Facebook that says, we are not going to cover the service call, and you have a date to be repaired on June 12th. That was it. Oh, Madonna mia. Not good. So then I go, what are you, a moron? Do not tell me stuff I already know. You need to call me. So finally, they called my husband this morning. This was all happening yesterday. They called my husband this morning and he goes, do you want to take this call? I said, well, absolutely. So this really nice guy gets on the phone. He says, hello, Mary Grace. Are you the one from Facebook? And I said, yep. He goes, how are you? I said, well, I'm not going to kill you if that's what you're asking. He said, no. He goes, and he was the nicest guy in the world. He goes, the first thing I must do is apologize to you. I've read your Facebook. I am so sorry. Everything you went through never should have happened. You are personally going to deal with me. I am the assistant manager. No, I'm the district manager of Michigan, and you will no longer do any more of these phone calls. And I will make sure when that part comes in, you are fixed within 24 hours. I was like, I said, and then I'm good with that. I said, this is all I needed all along. That's it. Please fix my freaking refrigerator. I lost it. I lost my freaking mind. I really did. And then I thought, God, I'm probably doing what I'm hearing about from clients, that their anger gets funneled somewhere in displacement.
Yeah.
You hit that tipping point and you're gone. Like I was gone. But yeah, you should have called and we should have had a cocktail. I probably then wouldn't have gone after the guy that's the head of LG. Yeah, that was my week.
Well, yeah. And it worked. That's the good news, right?
Well, that's the funny, the squeaky wheel does get the grease. It
does. It's too bad we had to squeak so loud, but
Well, and it would have been very simple. Of course, we know. You just needed somebody to say, you know what? I'm sorry.
Sorry. Let me see what I can do.
Right.
But their system is they shoot you overseas, and it's the overseas people that. And so at first, when you call, if you don't get a good line to the overseas person, your calls drop. Then you have to get back in the system and you go on hold again for like an hour, hour and a half. And then you finally get through and you say, I want manager. And then they shoot you into this other abyss and you get dropped. I mean, it was 6 hours.
Oh.
Thank God I didn't beat anybody.
Doesn't it make you appreciate though, when you go without something like a refrigerator or whatever it is, it's like, well, it's kind of like a restaurant right now. I can't wait to go sit down and eat in a restaurant and be served by some great waitress. It makes you appreciate those things.
You really do. I miss it. I miss it. But we have to be smart. But it leads to, and Dave and I see this in this week for me, Dave, at least either I was burnt out or the clients are really starting to get burnt out. Like people are really, really hitting these walls and these limits, and everything right now is not defined. And so people in this unknown, scary abyss, we don't have good leadership. And so it's triggering people. It's perpetuating fears terribly. And I was just telling Jamie, these poor graduates, to go back there again, because I dealt with some this week, they're scared to go off. They're excited and they're scared to go off to school. But for them, they have that added piece of, I'm going off and is it going to be dangerous? Am I going to get hurt? and they're scared, they're confused, they're becoming lethargic and temperamental and lashing out and excite and wanting to be excited, but afraid to be excited. I mean, it is just, this week was rough.
I wonder what age group, and you could probably answer this, of children, you know, from very young up to, you know, now they're young adults going off to college. But which group, if you will, is taking this the hardest, or is it the hardest on, you know, to deal with? Any idea?
You know, I think it's the real young, you know, it's the 4-year-olds, the 5-year-olds, the 6-year-olds, the 7, and then it's these, you know, high schoolers that are just so disconnected. You know, for them, they're defined by their group at that age. Like, that group connection is so important. And for a lot of boys, especially, it's about hanging out. They can hang out and not even talk. It feel that connection, you know? And so they're so disconnected, and they didn't have the closure.
I will say though that because again, I have a 17-year-old son. So for him, they are staying connected. Granted, it's not face to face, but you know, they're, you know, his group of friends, they're chatting all the time. I mean,
they're Zooming and connecting. And
5 a.m. most nights. Yeah.
Oh, that's the other
same old thing.
Same old thing. Yeah. I mean, my son, one day I went upstairs, was it Thursday? I said, "Are you just getting up?" It was 4:20. 4:20. He's like, "Oh wow, I went back to sleep." I'm like, it's dinner time. Like, we got to figure out dinner. Oh my God. And I'm not the only parent. It's all over the place that they're just, but the little ones, you know, to do a lead in, Denise, I had a situation this week with, you know, the single parents who share custody. And you got one parent who is vigilant, you know, they wear their masks and they, you know, they keep the social distancing going, and they really are observant of people who come in and out of their house. But the other parent does not believe in any of it. And so this person said to me, "What do I do? Is this a legal issue? Is this not a legal issue? What do I do?" And I was contemplating that this week, because these kids are little. You know, it's a 6-year-old, it's a 9-year-old, it's a 4-year-old. They're really little. And, you know, Dave, what I thought about as I was talking to this person and advising them, I thought, geez, I'm in a situation like I get in with college students, freshmen, and their parents when they're going off, and I want them to really know how to protect themselves and to keep themselves safe at the frat house, safe when they're, you know, someone's pushy, safe when, you know, to know about the GHB drug. Like, my brain is just scanning, and I teach this thing called a lie list for the teenagers. Like, when somebody's going to offer you something and you get uncomfortable, you lie. "Excuse me, I got to go to the bathroom," and you gain time to think. Or, "I can't smoke that joint. I have really bad asthma and I had an episode this morning." Or if, you know, you're in a sexual situation, "Oh my God, my contact just popped out," and you start to look for a fake contact, and then, you know, you go and say, "I have to go to the bathroom and rinse out my eye." Anything to buy time to stop the impulsivity and to really figure out how to take care of yourself. So I'm thinking about that approach. Only I'm thinking about it for a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, when they go to their parents' house. And I said, you know, there's a couple things you can do. One is to talk to the kids and say how important it is about the mask. Give them enough information, don't overload them, age appropriate. Give them enough information to say it's important to keep your mask on even when other people don't. And this is how you can do it. If somebody says, "Why are you wearing that stupid mask?" You say, "I like it." And you do an art project with the mask. You make it a cool thing. You make it a cowboy theme or whatever theme you want. And you teach them how to protect themselves. You teach them about the hand sanitizer. You teach them about the space. Give them permission to run around. And mom, the thing that was amazing, the mom said, "Oh my God, I feel better." And I said, because in times like this, when you feel trapped, you must empower yourself, and
Well,
you
think
must.
about this. I think this situation has amplified that dynamic, because honestly, when we're talking about separated parents, this goes on all the time. They have different views as far as how they parent, as far as how they discipline, as far as what the rules are. So kids are constantly being bounced back and forth between, and you see it when they're at one or the other parent's house. They act out more when they come home because the rules have changed.
Yeah. And there are two
tough.
different sets of rules in these households. I mean, it's so hard to see. Some people say, is this a legal issue? Should I be talking to my attorney? And I said, I think it's going to become a legal issue. I don't think they have any of the precedents in place to handle what they're about to be hit with in family court, especially if the kid gets sick.
Good point.
Yeah. But it's a tough one. And so, oftentimes, Denise, we talk about the aid, ways in which we can help families help their kids. And it's books. It's books. I mean, you've written Buzzy the Bumblebee. Here's some of Denise's amazing books. Someday is Not a Day of the Week, Willow, Tallulah, Mermaid of the Great Lakes, Willow and the Snowy Day, or the Snow Day, the Goodnight series, Library Reindeer, Forest. I mean, this is just, and then one that we want to talk about today is May the Mayfly. Because we were talking, Denise, that really helps kids deal with fear. And fear right now for kids is
Right.
It's fear for them, but also that they're immersed in it because their parents are feeling it.
And isn't that, we are such a role model for our kids, as we all know. And of course, when it comes to fear, it's so hard because none of us know. I mean, it's unknown to all of us what's going to happen. And it's not like we want to completely protect our children from what's going on, but boy, we're the barometer. And if they see our fear, if they feel our fear, sense our fear, it makes them more afraid, for sure. Yeah. I can remember as a kid, how my parents felt. I mean, that directly, related to how I felt. So I know it's an interesting time to deal with fear. And, when I wrote May the Mayfly, I started writing it in 2017. So
before any of this hit.
Right. I mean, that wasn't even anything I was thinking about, though I do have in a couple of my other stories, a nod about fear, and how we deal with it. And of course, in May the Mayfly, she deals with her fear when she almost gets eaten by a trout. She hides. Yeah. And she can't catch her breath, and she's scared, and she thinks, I'm staying here forever. I'm not coming out. And I've had people say it's almost like you wrote it because of the pandemic, which I didn't. But I think that for a while, I think it's easing a little bit. And on one hand, we can't completely hide from it. And we have to figure out how to deal with our fear and still protect ourselves and others. Mm-hmm. But still enjoy and embrace life and find new ways to experience it and to to enjoy it. So it's interesting.
Yeah. So May the Mayfly, she has 24 hours to live, correct?
Well, so what inspired me to write the story was I found out that mayflies, once they hatch, they start off as an egg, they fall to the bottom of the river, they live 1 to 2 years as a nymph. But once they come up, they only live as a mayfly for about a day. So I was really intrigued by that. And that was the first spark of inspiration. And I thought, wow, how would you live your whole life in a day? Or what would you do? And what would you learn from it? And that's what sparked me to kind of just dive into writing about a mayfly. And then eventually it became May and the story that it is, which is really about living life to the fullest, no matter how much time you have, and not letting fear stop you from doing what you're meant to do, and just enjoying living.
Now, when May was confronted, she was confronted by who again?
Well, so she was lured by a
Lured.
trout, which of course mayflies are tasty treats for trout. I mean, they're part of the food chain. So you know, I have the factual part of it, but then I also, of course, have the creative part of it.
Right,
So
right.
this trout lures her, and she ignores the warning in her head, which tells her, don't go, don't get down close to the trout. But she's intrigued by his voice, and she dips down low, and he lunges at her. Well, she ducks and she darts and she gets away. And that's when she flies into the hollow of a tree, and she's determined to stay there and not come out. But little by little, she hears, you know, a bird, she sees a spider web, and she's lured out, and she realizes that what her mama told her at the beginning of the story, you have your whole life, use your wings and explore. She can't hide. She has to go out and experience life. So
Yeah.
that's what she does.
You know, and that's right there. That is such a key thing when people are afraid, that they keep looking outward and trying to connect with people, and don't feed fear. Dave, we talk about that all the time on this show. Don't feed fear. You know, you can be afraid. Fear is just like any other emotion. It's an alert system. It tells you something's going on and to pay attention. It releases stress from the body, but it still, it doesn't mean because you feel afraid something bad is definitely going to happen. It's
Right.
a feeling, it's an alert. And the key to coping with fear is to connect, to share, to talk, to join, and it will calm down. And so when she looks out, you know, that's such a good visual for kids to don't go into that hiding space, to come out and connect with people so that you don't feed the anxiety, and then you don't feel despair, and then you don't feel trapped.
Right. Which that's a good point. And, you know, obviously this is such a strange time that, you know, some of the fear, I mean, we have to deal with what we can, but a lot of fear it's more in our head. It's, you know, it takes us to a place that, right. I mean, depression and anxiety and, you know better than I do, because that's what you do. But I just know from a, you know, being a mother and my own fears, I have to keep them, you know, at bay a little bit. You know, I have to deal with them, but you can't let them overwhelm you. And I think
you can't let them lead. Like, fear is about venting. Fear is about talking about something.
yeah.
But fear does not mean that something's going to happen. And I think that is so, and I think what trips people up from a physical perspective, fear is the most uncomfortable. There is such a sharp, I always say it's like getting electrocuted. There's such an intense physical feeling when you feel it, that it can easily get people to panic.
Right.
And you have to learn that, boy, it's such a physically charged feeling, but that just because you have that feeling doesn't mean something bad is going to happen. It's just
right. Because think of how many times, even if we're frightened by something, it doesn't hurt us, but that tingly feeling and that, you know, your heart rate and your breathing and that visceral reaction that you have to it. Of course, then there's other fears or just maybe more anxieties or worries. And again, you know, I'm seeing it a lot. I'm sure you're seeing it a lot. And it's, you know, just trying to make sure that we don't put too much of that onto our children, especially the very young ones, that we're talking and communicating and looking at the whole big picture and doing things that bring us joy, that make us feel good so we can counter that fear and that anxiety. You know, and getting outside. I mean, the sunshine, exercise. I think there's so many things that we can do to kind of calm and you know, keep that fear so it doesn't overwhelm us.
And if there is a good thing about the timing of this, is that it is nicer now.
Yeah.
March, it was cold. People, it's the end of winter and people are already just feeling down and just blah. So now, yeah, there is an opportunity. And you go back to the fear thing, and this is a question, and again, of course, it depends on the situation, because there are certain things you should be fearful of
Right.
in the right context. But,
Right.
but a lot of times I'll say to a client, it's like, for an example, for if they have social anxiety, I'm like, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? If you put yourself out there, you get rejected. What in the big picture, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. It's a blip on the screen.
Yeah.
Right.
A blip on the screen. I mean, I was teaching my daughter last night. She was dealing with some roommate stuff. Girls are tough, man. Girls are tough.
Aren't they
And
all
my-
tough?
Oh, my daughter is a nice person. And I was trying to teach her how to be tough. Like she's got some of me in her. So she's worried about these people being upset, but she was needing to set a boundary and she was needing to set a limit because people were, going beyond her boundaries and doing things that weren't okay to do with her stuff. And so she's like, what do I do? And I said, well, I said, this is an old-fashioned pissing match right now. And this is a good opportunity for you to toughen up and not worry about what other people think and not worry about their reactions, but for you to keep your boundary in place. And because they had touched her stuff and moved stuff and just seeing the anxiety that she went through. And she kept saying, maybe I should just say I'm sorry. And maybe I should just go along with it. And I said, you could, but you need to know your biggest complaint when you vent to mom is that people take advantage of you. So this is a good opportunity right now for you to work on helping your body to deal with the stress of saying no and to learn how to cope with the stress of saying no so that the stress dissipates and you get better and better at it. Or you can keep being a doormat. And we lost Denise, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. I forgot to put my phone on. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And she did it like because she kept wanting to send him a heart emoji and be really sweet. And I said, don't do that. Don't do that. You're setting a limit. And sure enough, she did it. And she was really shaky. She ended up sleeping with me last night. And I just, made her laugh and talked her through it. And she woke up to her phone and they had apologized to her.
Good for her.
I'm really, really sorry I never should have done that. You shouldn't have been treated that way. And I said, you see, but you were about to send them heart emojis and you were about to say it was no big deal. There's the lesson. To get comfortable with the uncomfortable and to get yourself to feel the strength internally to be able to take care of yourself, I think is so key to teach, especially David, our age kids are needing this more than ever right now.
Mm-hmm.
Denise's daughters they're a bit older, aren't they? In their 20s now? 20.
One's 31 and one's 23. So yeah.
Now, the one that's married, is she having a baby?
She is in 3.5 weeks.
Oh my
I'm
God.
gonna be a grandma. I know. I'm excited.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, and thank God she's having it now versus
In March or
oh,
April. Yeah. I have a couple of friends that had their daughters had children and it was stressful. I mean, before they really knew. Now they have a pretty good system and it will be a lot easier. I mean, they still won't let anybody else in the hospital other than the spouse or the partner.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
but that's okay.
She gets out. Yep.
I'll wait till she gets out and then I'll snuggle it.
That's right. This is the first grandbaby. Oh my gosh.
First grandbaby. Yep.
Do you know the sex of the grandbaby?
I'm sorry. Hold on here. I lost you again. Are you there?
Yeah, but we don't
Yeah,
see you.
we can still hear you.
Oh, my fault. There we go. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Except I can't hear you now. There.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, there. Try again.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, but it's a lot lower. I'm not sure what happened there, but
Okay, so we'll speak up. I can do that.
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
You
I
just
talk so loud that you could
Doesn't.
hear me even if it was
doesn't-
way down.
doesn't-
But sorry about that.
Are you because you do a lot with your books, like you're in the schools, you're, working with kids all the time. Have you been able to do that during this pandemic?
No, I mean, it hit in March, which March is
Reading
reading month in Michigan. So, a lot of my school visits and presentations were canceled, and library and conference, things like that. But I have done a lot of Zoom with classrooms,
Okay.
I was
good.
just gonna say, yeah. That-
which, it's like a lot of things. I mean, there's good and there's bad. So as much as we've, especially people my age, have dogged technology, now it's like, thank goodness we have it, because we are able to stay connected. Is in person the best way? Yes, in most cases. I'd much rather be with the kids and engaging them in person.
Mhm.
It's harder, obviously, especially with really young kids, but I did it with 60 kids recently, third graders.
Whoa.
And it was amazing, the questions that they had, and being able to see their faces, and in some cases their parents were there with them. So yeah, it was interesting. It was different, but I was glad that I could at least do that.
Wow. Well,
Encourage them to read and write and all the things that I try to do when I do school visits.
Yeah, books are such a key thing for parents to use as aids. Dave and I recommend that a lot in practice, certain books that's, deal with the issues that the parent is dealing with. And we've talked about May the Mayfly, which really helps with fear. You said there was another book. Which book were you thinking that also helps kids with fear?
Well, Buzzy. I mean,
Buzzy?
Buzzy was my first, and
Yeah, Buzzy the Bee, Bumblebee.
yeah, and I wrote that because I found out bumblebees, according to scientists, are not equipped to fly, or their wings are quite small for the size of their body. So aeronautically, back in the 1930s, scientists documented these studies that said, we're not sure how they fly, but they do. And so that story is about a bumblebee who finds out that he shouldn't be able to fly, and he believes it. I mean, he doubts himself, and he doesn't do the very thing that he is supposed to do and that he loves and enjoys doing. So again, there's, he has to learn that he has to listen to his own heart. He has to have people around him that believe in him. But there's a couple of my other stories where there's just a little nod towards fear and what we can do with it and how we can manage it. And, my Someday Is Not a Day of the Week book has a little bit of that in there as well.
I was just going to bring that up. Yeah. That's another book to talk about, because it's dealing with fear. It's having hope. It's, encouraging kids to dream and to keep dreaming, because this is temporary. And so Someday Is Not a Day of the Week. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Well, my youngest daughter, Rachel, came home from school one day when she was in, I think it was kindergarten, and she was singing the days of the week, that song that we teach kids to, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And, even when I think about what the initial thought is about, a story, my first thought was, well, why do we have 7 days a week? And why do we call them what we call them? And then I started to wonder what would happen if we had an 8th day of the week. Well, it took me a long time to come to the idea that we do have an 8th day of the week. We call it Someday. And so it's a story about a little boy who he's looking at mom as she's writing out her to-do list, and he thinks it looks really long and boring. And he finally pipes up and says, "Let's go to the fair today, Mom." And she tells him, "Someday, but not today." Then grandpa tells him someday, but not today, when he wants to go fishing. And daddy tells him someday, but not today, when he wants daddy to build him a fort.
Yeah.
And so Max looks for someday on the calendar, and he even re-sings the song, and he's looking and it's not there. So he says out loud, well, where is someday? And he hears this little voice, or these little voices say, someday's not a day of the week. Well, he wonders where the voices are coming from. And when he looks down at the calendar in front of him, he realizes it's the days of the week, and they're talking to him. And he has this conversation with the days of the week, and they tell him, don't wait for someday, pick one of us. And they go on to ask him, why are you looking for someday? And he tells them, well, that's when everybody tells me we'll do these things. So I have to find them. And they end up telling him, pick one of us. So then he has to enlighten mom and dad and grandpa with the calendar in his hand. Look, someday's not a day of the week.
Yeah.
So it's a story about making room for the things that matter most. And
Oh my
more
God.
often than not, the things that matter most are the little things, So
Yeah.
it actually, when kids ask me of my books that I've written, which one is my favorite, I always say, well, it's hard to pick a favorite, but of all the books I've written, that one reminded me when my kids were young that you can't put off, you have to do those things now.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking out loud, that would be a great adult book. I mean, it just talks to procrastination and putting things off and not getting things done and not following goals. And yeah, that's powerful.
Take action. Yeah. I mean, it is, especially with this pandemic, we have so much in the news about all the negative things that are happening with this pandemic, but there's some pretty amazing good things that are happening. And, families are eating together again, and families are playing games and doing things together. And, when I think about that book, I think, geez, families should sit down and say, okay, we have this time now. What are some of the things that we keep wanting to do as a family or create? The family portrait, whatever it is, what are the things we want to do that we have the opportunity to do right now because we're home?
Right. It doesn't have to be, and this is what whenever I talk about that book, if you make a list of the things that you do want to do, yeah, there's a trip here, there's a trip there. But a lot of times, especially for kids, and in the story, I made a point of it being, the fair, fishing, and a fort. Well, the fort's not a big fancy tree fort. It ends up being a blanket fort. And there's daddy in the blanket fort with Max. And, that's what I say to people. It's, kids remember the time, the attention, the one-on-one. It's not about the money that we spend or the possessions that we give them. It's giving of ourselves without disruption. And, and it really is, it's the simple things. And I do think that families have tapped into that a little bit more. I don't think it's been easy, and I would never want to downplay, some of the financial things and businesses that are struggling and all of that. But I do think it makes us realize that, some of the simplest things really matter and fill us up more than we realize, because we were so busy doing and going.
Yeah.
And when we just stop doing all that, it's like, what do we have? What is it that we really want out of life, and what really brings us joy?
Yeah.
So, and again, I don't mean to downplay, I think about people that don't have things, and not possessions, but, that just the bare necessities aren't there. I'm fortunate. And so I don't want to,
You have young kids, make the fort, take the tablecloth, take the chairs, take a blanket.
right.
That fort, because that'll mean everything to kids, little kids, especially, or do the puzzle, or, we've been doing these puzzles, and this one is delayed. It's driving me crazy. And at first my son wanted no part of it. And my daughter and I are going to town on the puzzle, and we had just a little piece left that I couldn't wait to get to. And I came back and somebody put it together. And I said, Amelia, I can't believe you did this. She goes, I didn't do it. And my son starts laughing. I said, I thought you wanted nothing to do with the puzzle. He said, well, I was sitting there having something to drink, and I started and I thought, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So he's like, are you going to order another one? I said, yeah. Well, now for sure I'm going to order another one, because we can sit around and chit chat and
Yeah.
work on it, and then also see something completed during a time when we're, not getting out. So
And it satisfies our OCD compulsions.
yeah. Oh yeah. Puzzles are great for that.
I've seen so many stories or posts about people who they purchase a puzzle, get to the end, and there are one or two pieces missing. How maddening would that be?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I would have to order a new one just to get those two pieces.
Yes. Yes. You always got to have that next one coming, but they're hard to get right now.
No, I know they are.
They're taking forever to come in. And we like the puzzle. It's the Rottenberger puzzles that what is on the box is not what you're going to put together.
Oh, really?
It's familiar to the box, but they change it and you don't know what, like say it's a family in a car and the father's driving. This is the one we just did. And by the time you put it together, the dog is driving, the cat is knocked over a bowl when everybody was sitting perfectly. The word bubbles are different. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's fun and it's also frustrating because you're like,
you don't have a picture to follow.
Yeah. Yeah. But with these kids, I mean, you had 60 third graders. How did they do on Zoom with you?
Amazing. We talk a lot about doctors and nurses, and people and what they've been doing. I think they've done an amazing job, but I think teachers, educators, what they've had to do, they had to continue doing their job in a completely different manner. They had to step up big time. And I mean, I have friends that are teachers and I just am amazed at what they can do. So there were teachers, they brought their classes to this Zoom is how it worked. It's fascinating because I'm not very tech savvy, as you can tell. But they moderated it and they would call on their students. The students all knew to mute their microphones when they weren't the ones talking. And they would ask a question. And of course, so I would be with this one kid, talking and going back and forth. All the other kids could hear. And then I'd go on to the next student. It was amazing. And the questions, which I have this pet peeve that that even adults don't have great questions, but kids, it's like, if we could just teach them how to question, because that's really curiosity and all of that. That's how we learn. Yeah. I was blown away by the questions that these kids had. And I thought, well, either the parents helped them or the teachers, or maybe, I don't know, maybe they have more time to come up with questions, but they were some great questions. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Time, because kids haven't had time. Everything is rushed in their lives. Everything is pushed. There's so many extracurriculars, you have to hurry to eat. You have to hurry to do your homework. And the pause that's happening for them now, I mean, I wonder if that's a real testament to their brains get to like have some freedom without
it'll be interesting when, if we could fast forward and really see what this has done for kids. I think everything needs a balance, and I think there are pros and cons and all of that. But I wonder what age bracket. I know my own, my youngest daughter played basketball. She actually played college basketball. And I think about, how hard it would have been for her to have not been able to do that. But I also know that routine, that merry-go-round that we get on, and we pressure ourselves and our kids and all of that, so I'd love to see what science shows us this did for kids in this pandemic time.
I can get on a soapbox about parents, without even realizing it, control was taken from the household and the family and given to coaches and technology. All of these invasions into the family home where people are telling them what they're going to do and when they're going to do it and how they're going to do it. And Denise, you and I have had this conversation. I think you and I too, Dave, about, coaches saying to families, and this is just kid's not becoming a pro player. This is not a kid who's going to be an Olympian, but the coach saying, well, you're not here on Christmas Eve for volleyball practice. You're going to be benched for 2 weeks. Then the parents freak out and say, oh my God, our daughter can't be part of Christmas on Christmas Eve because, in the beginning part of the day, she's got to play volleyball. And these parents have been taken over, instead of there's just this sanctity to the family that used to be a part of when we grew up. And there's certain times that coaches have your kids and there's certain times that are family times, and it was well defined, but it's gone now. And this violation is just so sad because our kids are getting sicker and sicker and sicker. Cutting is up, suicide rate amongst teenagers is up, addiction with teenagers. What are they calling, Dave? Have you heard the overachieving terminology that they're using with kids? Where they're constantly, they can never do enough. They, as far as getting into the best college and getting the best grades and, having the right extracurriculars and just knowing absolutely what they're going to do for a career before they even get out of high school. Like there's this term that came up in our field. I
don't know if I've heard a term. I mean, I know that exists because there are a lot of, and being an overachiever is not a bad thing unless it takes over your, sanity, for lack of a better term. And again, those kids, if they, a quick story. I had a roommate in college, my freshman year. He was a junior. He had never had anything less than an A ever in his whole school career. So I met the guy, nice guy. I just met him. We lived together in a room for a year, my freshman year. So his routine, he would get up, go to breakfast, go to class, come home, sit in front of his desk for 6 hours, go to bed. That's his routine every day. And then to top it off, he was also an ROTC. So 1 week in a month he would be gone. But he had never been out and done anything. And he's a junior in college. He'd never been to an activity. He'd never been to
just that socialization, that's connection, that knowing how to just connect and relax and fill the tank. And
so the middle of after our break, from holiday break coming into the second semester of my freshman year, we sat and talked one night, and he said, I've never taken a break. I've always just been stuck in this routine. So he just kind of said, screw it, I'm going to start having fun. So he did. He would go out with us, and granted, he still had like all A's and like 2 B's.
Yeah.
but he was so much happier because now he's able to experience life and not just be locked into that perfection that, again, probably driven from childhood.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's an emptiness. It's a vacancy. It's just getting a kid to function with their brain. But as far as their heart and intimacy and relationships, it's not being balanced out. And it needs to be. And these kids are breaking down. I've had kids in my caseload where I have to sit down with the parents and say, enough is enough. You have to stop believing that if your kid doesn't get pushed to this point, they aren't going to get into a good school. And college has turned into big business.
Oh,
and so colleges are saying, you don't get into a top 10 school or you don't get into Ivy, you're not going to get a good job. And that's all a bunch of crap.
It is.
It's all a bunch of crap. In fact, I always say, don't go to your reach school. Leave that for your grad program. You don't want to start out college up against people that are, the highest of the high, and you're trying to get your feet wet and trying to get yourself grounded in this new life of adulthood, and you're being compared to the best of the best. That's not going to do very good for self-esteem. And that's going to cause a lot of anxiety, and that anxiety causes despair, and that despair can lead to a shame spiral. And these kids then beat the crap out of themselves. And, it's such a serious problem.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. For you, your kids, Denise, it was happening, but the intensity now Oh,
I
it
know.
breaks my heart. And these,
Even the difference from my oldest to my youngest, the
Oh.
difference in the pressure. I wonder, and both of you have kids, how do they, younger kids,
Yeah.
how do they feel about this? You know, I mean, have they enjoyed any part of it, or do they just want it to go back to the way it was?
Well, my son's a senior this year, so he missed out on quite a few things as far as prom, graduation, all the stuff that goes along with it. And I think at some point he just resigned himself. He's like, oh, well, he's like, I'm done with school. I'll just have a long vacation, you know? But again, he has good grades. Don't get me wrong, but he's not like an overachiever. He's not the most motivated kid in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. See, my daughter,
He was just like, yeah, it sucks, but what are you going to do?
my daughter is the overachiever. And we had in high school in her freshman year, we put her in the IB program, the International Baccalaureate program, which was a new program at her high school. And it got she started to have panic attacks. She couldn't sleep. She would come home from school at 2:20, 2:30, and would get stressed out if she wasn't back doing homework by 3 o'clock. And I'm not exaggerating. Her homework went from 3 to 11, 11:30, 12, 1. And then they have to be at the park and start classes at 7 in the morning. So they're up, depending on if they're a bus kid, 5:30, 6. And they do this all through the week. And then the studying started to be that she was studying 12 to 13 hours on Saturdays and Sundays. And she evolved into stomach problems. And she went to a homecoming dance, and the girls had to leave because they were having panic attacks because they had an APUSH exam on Monday. They got all dressed up. They were at the dance for 45 minutes because they were so filled with anxiety. When she walked in the door, I just couldn't believe it. I said, that's it. That is freaking it. I'm talking to the counselor at school. Mama Bear is stepping in. She was very scared. I said, you got to trust me here. I said, I'm going to step in. And I sat down with the counselors. I said, what the hell is going on? They're killing these kids. This is not a master's degree program. This is freshman year of high school. And the line is, if you finish our program, you're going to have a 10 to 20% better chance to get into the University of Michigan. And so they start pushing this when they're freshmen in the 8th grade, even when they, you got to know, you got to know, you got to know. And it was so bad. The counselor said, well, thank God you're one of the moms that came in. I'm going to tell you, get her the hell out of the program, because she'll get into U of M in regular classes to have her take some APs, some honors society or honors classes. She goes, it does not have to be this IB program. And I said, well, when you go to the orientation, they sell it like it's like a huge deal.
And here comes the other side of that. Even if she, and again, not specifically about Grace, but anybody, even if they don't get into the school of their choice, there are hundreds of universities that you can attend. You can get a great education almost anywhere, depending on what
That's right. Yep. This was the kid who had a 4.2 with these incredible extracurriculars, and she got deferred from U of M the first round. And I got a phone call of her crying hysterically in the bathroom going, I did everything they told me to do. How could this be happening to me? And I had to tell her, it's a bunch of shit. Listen to me. It's a bunch of shit. Your mother is a successful woman. Your mother went to a community college first. She then went and transferred to a decent undergrad program, and then went to the University of Michigan. And look at the success in my life. Don't let anybody ever tell you your success depends upon this school, because it's a bunch of crap. And these poor kids really are made to believe this. Yeah. And they get the pressure from all sides. And then they end up coming in and they're having these panic attacks and these stomach issues, and they can't sleep. And I have to work really hard to get the parents to take a look at the schedule and say, get them the hell out of this. One kid came in, she had 4 APs, Dave, 4 APs. Now, teachers will tell you do not take more than 2. Like, it's just too much work. This is college level classes. This girl, I think she's a junior when this hit her in her beginning of her junior year. And you have to constantly tell the parents, don't feed into this. You got to take your lives back. You got to take your kids back, and you got to start pushing back to these systems, because believe me, when parents start taking their power back and push back with these systems, they'll change. They need us. They need our money. They need our kids. Push back with the coaches. This is a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
I had one poor mom who was so burnt out because a coach told them to cancel their spring break, a family of 6 who was burned out, had a horrible year, because if their kid wasn't there, he was not going to be in the swim meet after break. And they did it. And it caused a huge rift in the family. I mean, it was kids being disappointed. The kid didn't want to swim anymore. It was just so sad what was happening. Families have to take their lives back. I mean, this pandemic can be an opportunity for everyone to connect and to also learn and grow and empower themselves to say no. Oh, you want to bench my kid? Go ahead. Guess what? If that's the best player on the team or a really good player, and there's 2 or 3 of those really good players that aren't going to be at that practice, what's that coach going to do? He's going to have to rethink a little bit. It's really tough. And to give it to the coaches too, they're getting a ton of pressure. They're saying, if we don't produce this, kind of player, we want to win these champions and we want to get these kids to these great universities. But you have to know this got created by business.
Of course.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough. So
I know we are getting close here. So before we run out of time, Denise, tell us just a little bit. I'm just interested. What got you started into thinking about? I mean, I know, again, on your bio, you wanted to be a detective when you were growing up, but what led you to the writing part? What prompted that?
And kids ask me these questions all the time, good ones that make me think like this. I didn't grow up thinking I wanted to be an author, but I did enjoy writing. I wrote a lot of poetry. My dad still loves poetry, and he read it to us often. So I know that's where I got my love of that. It really, up until I wrote my first book, Buzzy the Bumblebee, I wrote for me, sometimes family, friends a little bit. And I tell people that writing isn't just for authors, it's for everybody. I think especially with what's going on right now, it's so important that we are all writing or documenting, what we think about this. But when I found out that bumblebees are not supposed to be able to fly, it was the first time that I really dug deep and then wrote the story and then felt that I had something to share. It dawned on me years later that the reason that people get published is because they feel what they've written, as Anne Lamott puts in Bird by Bird, shines on paper like its own little lighthouse. And I felt like this idea that bumblebees are not supposed to be able to fly, but do, and we can't let fear and doubt stop us from doing the things that we long and love to do. But it was the first time I had something that I thought, hey, this is pretty good. I think there might be people out there that not only like it, but that maybe will benefit from it. Mm-hmm. So I pursued getting it published. It took me 4 years and a lot of rejection letters. And
wow.
After I got that published, I realized I had more stories that were wanting to come out and that I wanted to share. So, but I think I think that's true of a lot of people. I think a lot of people have something in their heads and their hearts that is worthy of sharing. So I just got lucky. And
okay, and I'm going to ask one more thing. Can you tease soul treats, or is that still in the works?
It's still in the works.
Okay.
I'm hoping within the next 6 months that there'll be something more concrete. But it kind of ties into what I did before I became an author and wanting to share that, but giving people things that are good for their souls. And so but thank
Okay.
you for asking.
Well, I didn't want to push it. I just thought maybe maybe we get a tidbit or something, but
Yeah, well, it's still, lots going on with it, but we're not quite ready to launch it. But
okay.
when I am, I'll come back on. How's that?
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Yes.
Oh, that would be wonderful, Denise. Absolutely. Well, we're kind of coming to
Yep.
the end of time. I'm getting my little alerts. Is there, just real quick, Denise, so the recommendations right now in regards to your books for parents who are listening, that could help them to entertain. Of course, any of the books can entertain,
Yeah.
but to help them with some of the things that the pandemic is causing them, are May the Mayfly.
Yep. I think May the Mayfly is great. And I think that throughout the story, there's points, things you can talk to your kids about, like when May does hide, how do you think she's feeling? And, what draws her out? And, I
Yes.
think, but yeah, May the Mayfly, I think Someday is Not a Day of the Week is a good one.
Some day is not a day of the week. And, I will try to list some of these on our link, on our podcast. I'll put some of these ideas out there from
Well, I
people. So-
appreciate it.
And Denise, if you
Oh,
just give us your website real quick, and we'll post that too, but just so that people can hear it.
And it's DeniseBrennanNelson.com.
Perfect.
Perfect. And people can find David on the Motor City Hypnotist.
MotorCityHypnotist.com or counselingandtherapyassociates.com. Also Motor City Hypnotist on YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah, and Psyched by MG is on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn and now Instagram. My daughter has created my Instagram account for me. So
Is she running it for you?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Now she's taking over my Twitter. So yeah, and we're on Twitter. And next week, real quick, we're gonna take a look at A Secret Love. Dave, I wanted you to watch.
Yes,
that.
I did watch it. So we're
You
ahead of the game.
did? Oh my God, I'm
Yeah.
behind.
Oh no, I'm way ahead of it on that. In fact, I'm going to watch it again because I took some notes. There's a lot of interesting dynamics in this. Yeah.
Have you heard about this, Denise? A Secret
No.
Love? Oh, it's these two women that were in a relationship for like 65 years or something, and they just came out to their friends and family 3 years ago.
And they're both in their 80s, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And they did a documentary on their life and what they went through, and they were baseball players back when was
back in the women's baseball league, the League of Their Own that was based on or told the story of that. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So Matthew's
Fascinating.
we're gonna talk about that.
But just to
thank
give you
you,
a tease,
Denise.
the dynamics between the partners, we'll get into that, but
Oh,
it's
okay,
interesting. It's very interesting.
I'm excited to
Okay.
talk about
All
that.
right.
And thank you, Denise, for getting
Thank
ready.
you.
Yes, thank you, Denise, for joining us.
And we definitely want you to come back. And thanks to everybody for joining us. And we're live on Facebook every Friday night at 6:30 on Psyched by MG. And I hope everybody has a great weekend.
All right, folks. See you soon and be safe.
Thank you.
Hey, that's a catchy tune.